Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are tackling something, well, something truly monumental. The stack of sources you sent over for this one is just vast. It's this sprawling collection trying to tie together everything. Our origins, reality itself, non-human entities, and this global agenda for total control.
It's definitely an ambitious collection. You could almost call it a unified field theory of conspiracy. I mean, the core mission here for us is to really synthesize the foundational premise that runs through all of it.
Which is?
That there are multiple groups of non-human entities here interacting with Earth, and that a massive, ancient, and very compartmentalized global structure, the material calls it the cult or the web, is steering humanity toward this one single high-tech future.
And what's so fascinating is how it connects these things that seem totally separate, starting way back in ancient history.
Right.
So we're going to unpack the alleged nature of these visitors, from, ancient meddling to modern abductions.
And then we pivot.
Right. Then we get into the physics of control, the supposed mechanics of this global system that the material describes in detail.
We really have to start with the UFO phenomenon itself. I mean, it's an undeniable anomaly. Whether you believe all the claims or not, you just can't ignore the core evidence.
You mean like the Tic Tac cases?
Exactly. The 2004 Nimitz encounters. You have highly credible U.S. Navy pilots, advanced sensor data, all showing objects performing these impossible maneuvers. It strongly suggests that at least some of this is definitively not us.
And the sources go further. Not us doesn't just mean extraterrestrial. They open it up to interdimensional beings, maybe even time travelers. But the part that grabs you right away is the claim this has been going on for millennia.
Which brings us to the ancient genetic intervention theory.
The D allele.
The D allele, yes. This is a remarkable point. I mean, scientists observed this undeniable explosion of human creativity and invention that just sort of happens around 40,000 years ago. And it coincides with the appearance of a crucial genetic component.
A specific D allele in the microcephalin gene. Something to do with brain size and development.
Right. Now hang on, because here's the kicker.
Okay.
Geneticists have tried over and over to find this exact D allele in our closest known relatives. The Neanderthals, the Denisovans. They can't find it. It's not there. So if this huge leap in our intelligence and creativity didn't come from our known genetic line, the sources say, well, you need a serious rethinking of our early history.
So the suggestion is, if it didn't evolve naturally from our known ancestors, maybe it was put there.
That's the implication. That you should consider the extraplanetary species from old texts, the Bene Elohim, the Watchers, the Anunnaki. It completely flips the script on evolution. It suggests an intentional external intervention.
A genetic modification.
A targeted upgrade, you could say. And as you move forward in history, the encounters continue, but often with entities that are, well, they're strikingly human-like.
Like the Fazio Cardano account from the 16th century.
Yeah.
His visitors had these theological ideas that were just completely alien to the local culture.
And that theme persists, this human-looking but not from here idea. There's a 1959 encounter in New Zealand. The beings looked human, but the language they spoke was described as just incomprehensible.
Which is such a key detail. It's not just a foreign language. It's incomprehensible. It sort of rules out them being, secret pilots from Russia or China.
And that leads into this observer thesis. The sources detail an account of a man named Janus who met someone called Horsley. Janus was described as telepathic. He told Horsley that humanity had a very low level of consciousness.
So he was like an extraterrestrial observer just watching.
Absolute experiment. But okay, let's pivot now to the entities that really dominate the modern story, the Greys.
Right. Because while you hear about human-looking types, the vast majority of reports from people who claim they've been taken aboard a craft. It's the Greys, short ones and tall ones.
And their agenda, according to these accounts, is intensely specific and frankly chilling. It's all about hybridization. The sources are filled with details of these invasive physical exams.
Focused on the reproductive system.
Heavily. The systematic extraction of sperm and ova. It's a recurring theme.
And then there are the implants, these tiny, sometimes painful objects inserted into the body.
Often in the eye socket or the sinus cavity. The sources suggest they're for tracking or monitoring. But what really drives home the visceral horror of this alleged program is the imagery.
The tanks.
The tanks. This recurring description of hybrid fetuses or babies floating in these large aquarium-like containers, often filled with a greenish-blue liquid. Some female abductees even report being forced to interact with them, to hold them, to nurse them.
As if to accelerate their development.
To aid the hybridization process, yes. This is not a one-off visit, it's a dedicated program. And this brings us to one of the most explosive claims in the whole source stack.
Human-alien collaboration.
Which leads to the idea of a breakaway civilization. There's this 1964 account from a Marine named Ramon. He claims he saw a 7-foot, scaly, muscular reptilian creature.
In a uniform.
In a blackish-green uniform with a dragon-like badge, standing right alongside U.S. military personnel. For the sources, this is the smoking gun. It suggests a secret, highly advanced human group has been operating in the shadows, collaborating with non-humans for decades.
The breakaway civilization. Okay, so if these groups are operating with technology far beyond ours, we have to assume they also understand the very foundation of our reality better than we do.
And that's exactly where the sources go next. They argue that reality itself is the first layer of control. We have to shift from the biological agenda now to the existential.
The digital hologram.
Correct. The sources claim the universe is, at its core, a digital hologram. They even cite people like NASA's Rich Terrile and other physicists who suggest the physical world we experience is, in a way, illusory.
Okay, but what does illusory really mean here? I mean, I can touch this desk. It feels solid. What are they actually claiming is happening? Can you give us the simple version of this?
I'll try. The claim is that our 5 senses and our brain are basically a decoding mechanism, a very powerful one. They take in information that's already conscious and encode it in wave fields, pure energy and data. And they translate that data into the simulation we call the physical world.
So the desk is real, but its solidity is a projection, a decoded signal.
It's the ultimate VR experience, and we mistake it for the base reality. Everything is just conscious information in what they call the field.
Okay, so if reality is that pliable, if it's just information, how does the web or the cult exploit this? Why do they bother with things like politics if they can manipulate reality itself?
Because their control is based on perception, not on brute force. The sources define the web as this incredibly sophisticated, compartmentalized secret society. At the top, you have the spider, what ancient texts are called the fallen ones, or the archons, who dictate the agenda.
And the people lower down don't know the full plan.
No, but the insider initiates do. Which explains why writers like Huxley and Orwell were so disturbingly accurate. They weren't prophets, they were just revealing the blueprint they had been shown.
And their primary tool is division.
Always. The cult has to perpetuate this illusion of separation, race, religion, politics, you name it. Because the moment we realize we are all fundamentally connected in that wave field, that we're all each other, the manipulation ends.
Which is why the sources call organized religion one of the greatest forms of mind control ever. It keeps us in our separate boxes.
It's the ultimate divide and rule tool. But let's get to the really shocking part, the motivation. Why? If they are these powerful archons, why all the subtle manipulation, social media addiction, political fights? Why not just take over?
Because they need something from
They need something we generate. The sources describe the ultimate agenda as a kind of energetic vampirism. They feed on low vibrational emotional energy.
Fear, hatred, anxiety.
Pure fear, chronic anxiety, political outrage. That's their food source.
So humanity is basically a battery.
It's the exact analogy used. You see it symbolized in films like The Matrix, even Monsters, Inc. The entire purpose of the cult is to manipulate society, to stage these problem reaction solution events, specifically to generate the maximum amount of that low vibrational emotion.
To get the energy flowing.
The control is just a means to an end. The real goal is the constant harvest of fear.
Which brings us to today. The methods for generating fear have to evolve, right? The sources claim that the heavy lifting of mind control has now been outsourced.
To Silicon Valley, private tech companies are now doing the work of totalitarian population control through mass surveillance, tracking, and the deliberate engineering of social media addiction.
They call this the totalitarian tiptoe.
That's the phrase, yes. It's the process of small, incremental changes. None of them seem like a big deal on their own, but they all move us down the same path toward that centralized goal. And one of the biggest tiptoes right now, according to this material, is the climate change narrative.
The sources claim this narrative is being used to justify massive social transformation and control. And to do that, they say, requires a complete inversion of the actual science.
Precisely. The controversial claim here is that CO2 is being wrongly demonized. They argue it's the gas of life, and that the planet actually has a CO2 deficiency.
So demonizing CO2, pushing for things like veganism and synthetic food. The sources see this not as environmentalism, but as a control mechanism.
An economic and social control mechanism designed to restrict your freedom, your movement, your access to resources. And running parallel to that is the social engineering.
The focus on gender.
Yes. The material argues there is a systematic effort to make boys and girls the same, to create no-gender humans and eventually eliminate the sexes. And they note that this is tragically supported by things like falling sperm counts, which they link to environmental chemicals and radiation.
And the end goal isn't equality, it's
The creation of a compliant, infertile population that can't reproduce on its own and is dependent on external authority.
It's just so jarring to see the sources connect ancient archontic invasion with modern AI assimilation. They're saying it's the same force, just in a new technological wrapper. What is the endpoint of this totalitarian tiptoe?
It's the smart grid, the final, centrally controlled system that connects everything. The sources point to Ray Kurzweil's vision of putting gateways to the cloud in our brains, merging with AI until the human part of our thinking becomes utterly negligible.
And sources suggest that this master AI is the archontic force.
It's the modern manifestation of it, yes.
Okay, but if the goal is harvesting negative energy, why bother with subtle tools like universal basic income or 5G? Why not just use brute force?
Because they need us alive, functional, and generating the fear. Brute force is messy. The subtle methods create compliance and dependence. The sources lay out the implementation plan pretty clearly, the problem reaction solution technique.
PRS.
PRS. You covertly create a problem. The sources allege the pandemic was a manufactured hoax for this purpose to generate a public reaction of fear. Something must be done.
And then you offer your pre-planned solution.
Tyranny. And the plan components are all there. Digital currencies for total economic tracking, no private transactions, pervasive 5G, and they specifically call out the 60 gigahertz frequency, claiming it affects oxygen molecules.
UBI, Universal Basic Income, is framed as a control lever, not welfare.
Exactly, to ensure dependence. And the ultimate enforcement, they claim, will be an AI world army, autonomous weapons that don't have human hesitation.
So to sum this up,
Okay.
we've traced this incredible, unsettling journey from ancient genetic meddling and secret military deals with reptilians, all the way to this idea of a holographic reality run by a hidden cult.
A cult using social division and this creeping technological grid to systematically harvest our emotional energy for its own survival.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. But the key takeaway, according to all these sources, is that the entire system is built on a lie. The lie of separation. So the path to freedom isn't a political revolution. It's an internal one.
Realizing the difference between your true self and the labels the system gives you. Gender, race, your job, your debt.
Exactly. All of that is the program. Freedom, they argue, comes from realizing I am infinite awareness, a state of consciousness that is simply immune to that low vibrational manipulation. You just step outside of it.
And so we'll leave you, the listener, with this final provocative thought from the material. What if you looked at your own life, not as a series of random chaotic events, but as a series of interconnected experiences that were perhaps pre-planned, that were necessary for your own consciousness to expand? What would that imply about the value of humanity? Maybe we aren't just slaves or batteries. If the stories about observers are true, maybe we are part of the greatest show in the quadrant, a show these visitors and archons are desperately trying to influence, and maybe, just maybe, desperately trying to join.